The following is presented commercial-free thanks to the sponsorship of Peden Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electrical.
Growing up here, I thought it would be like most hurricanes, little scare while it's offshore, gets just before onshore and dies back out. Figured really a Cat 1, Cat 2. And so I thought we may miss a day or two of work and have a little cleanup, and that was it.
My husband and I are both first responders, so we were trying to make sure that we had the kids taken care of. We knew where they were going. They were going with some active duty friends of ours, and just prepping what we could while working, but we still didn't think it was going to be anything major at the time.
I've lived through many hurricanes here in Panama City, from Opal all the way through. So a part of us a part of me was feeling like this wasn't, really, we knew a storm was coming, but it didn't feel like a big deal.
We were coming off a period of high storm complacency. Basically, we hadn't had one in a while. Everybody referred to the storm of reference before that, which was Opal, and then you had Eloise before that.
Earlier that May, my wife Katie had been diagnosed with breast cancer. So we ended up making an appointment at Moffitt. Moffitt, the first they could see us was October 10th.
Checked on all the family members, got our house secured, and got ready for work. We knew that we were going to have a busy couple of days, didn't know it would turn into weeks and months.
Really the balance of that day was, making sure that our employees were prepared, all of our different departments and our personnel that have to have a role immediately after landfall, making sure that they were having opportunities to get home, get prepared, get their families prepared, so that post-landfall, our crews would immediately be able to hit the ground running.
We were battening down the hatches. My mother-in-law lives by herself, so we had her come stay with us, and we had a nice dinner cooked out. We have pictures of the three of us out in front of the house because the sunset was just beautiful, and we all have big old smiles on our faces, never dreaming how different things would be in the morning.
You hear talk of a hurricane, you think, there's no way it's going to come here, but it sure came here.
I knew that morning, based on the modeling, that the storm was going to become as big as it was going to become. And so I did as much preparation as I could at my house, got my stuff together as much as I could, and then came into work with the real knowledge that Michael was going to become this enormous hurricane.
The hotel that we did World News tonight and talked about how quickly the storm was intensifying, and then as we're wrapping, we went to the hotel that they had booked for us, and there were a ton of trees around it, and they only had one of the rooms on a second floor. The rest of us were on the ground floor. That's a big no-no when you're talking about up to 7 feet of surge is what was expected there. So we said, let's try to make a different decision and a safer one. So we started looking, and also because I wanted to get a little closer to where the action would be. So we went up the coast and there was no hotels.
We hire mostly young people straight out of college for our reporter positions, and one of the conversations I have with them is that I'm going to protect them. I'm not going to put them in a dangerous situation. And when I have the opportunity, in most cases, to meet their parents, I tell them, I'm going to protect your child, don't worry about it. So when a storm like this comes up, first thing on your mind is, okay, I want to make sure nobody gets hurt, and what do? How do we handle this?
This is another briefing, Bay County Emergency Operations Center for Hurricane Michael. We continue to be extremely concerned at the Emergency Operations Center that people are not taking this storm seriously and are not evacuating.
The night before, we were getting phone calls saying, hey, will y'all please leave? This is going to be bad. I was just self-assured enough to think, oh, I know better, these people are overreacting.
Our concern was that people were not taking it seriously and not evacuating. I remember looking at the traffic cameras, Monday over Tuesday and seeing light traffic exiting Bay County and really becoming concerned.
We went to bed that night anticipating maybe a week 3 coming in, and we'd ridden those out before, so we really, weren't that concerned. And then when the 3 of us woke up the next morning and it was coming in as a 4.
I spoke with one woman in Mexico Beach, and it's a kind of a conversation that haunts me to this day, one of those things. Her mom was on the special needs registry, and she said, I can't evacuate. My mom's had a stroke. She's on hospice. If I leave, she's dead. And I said, ma'am, I understand that, but you need to get out. And at this point, we weren't not scaring, because this was, the night before, and they were pretty sure it was going to make landfall at Mexico Beach. And we said, ma'am, you have a potential of death if you stay where you are. And she said, it doesn't matter, because she's dead anyways, so I'm staying here. I said, okay. And I still don't know what happened to her.
We were assigned different areas of the city. A bunch of us, there was 15 of us that went to the Gulf Coast Hospital, and that was where we would be stationed during the storm.
Even though we've always sent our kids out of town from when they were little to now adults, made sure they were safe, my husband always stayed. He always stayed with the house. He just stayed home with the pets and the house.
Woke up the next morning with the plan of we'll look at the radar, see what we're looking at, and make a decision if we need to make a last-second move. And by that point, we were receiving the shelter-in-place orders, and so at that point, we're stuck.
This time we knew it was going to be bigger than ever before. So he got in this old motorhome that we had enjoyed camping in and started to head north.
I think it was more like a resignation to the fact that, okay, we're riding this out, it's going to get scary.
And someone came to wake me up at, I don't know what time it was, 5 or 6, and said, your husband's on the phone, you're not answering your cell phone. And so, of course, I got up, answered the landline that was still working at the time. And he was like, what are you doing? And I said, I'm sleeping. What are you doing? Are you in Alabama? And he said, I'm on my way back. And I said, on your way back, where? And he said, I'm coming down 231 and I'm coming to you. I'll stay in the motorhome out back. I know you're not supposed to have family members there, but I can't leave you.
Right as we ended GMA, the search started to be obviously pushing closer, and gosh, the time went really quick from there. We told the satellite truck to get out because there was no way that we were in a safe place water-wise. We knew that our vehicles, being where they were, absolutely would take on water, but we just decided to stay put and cover the storm from Mexico Beach.
We were switching our messaging to, you need to shelter in place. If you haven't left at this point, you need to stay home. You need to stay where you're at.
Warnings were coming out with a dire, urgent message for preparation. But this is a new bulletin, and it's something that has never been issued. The National Weather Service in Tallahassee, Florida has just issued an extreme wind warning for Gulf County, Southern Bay County, and southwestern Franklin County. That is until 2:15 Eastern, 1:15 Central. That is an extreme wind warning. National Weather Service Doppler radar indicating extreme winds in excess of 130 miles per hour associated with the eye wall of Hurricane Michael were moving onshore. This is an extremely dangerous situation and life-threatening situation. Precautions and preparedness actions. Now, this is text from the bulletin. I just want to read it to you cold. Take cover now. Treat these imminent extreme winds as if they were tornadoes, and move immediately to the safe room in your shelter. Take action now to protect your life. And what was going through my mind at that point is like, gosh, I hope the folks in Mexico Beach were ready for this, because we left the air that previous night, with the knowledge that there were still a lot of folks who had stayed on the coast.
They had, I think, 200 plus people who had decided they were going to stay.
And as conditions deteriorated throughout the day, at some point we made the decision that emergency response was no longer possible because of flying debris and wind and dangerous conditions.
We finally went on air and said, okay folks, we've been saying all morning, find somewhere safe to get. Well, it's no longer safe to go get somewhere safe. You are where you're at.
I was talking to my son, who at the time lived in Las Vegas, and this horrible noise came. It was in the middle of the storm, and half of our roof blew off. And I said, Paul, I think our roof is coming off. And then we lost cell phone service. So the last thing he heard me say is that the roof was coming off. And that was such a terrible thing for me as a mom to know. I need to let him know we're okay.
When it started raining on me in my recliner in the living room, we decided to relocate to a closet. Our homeowner that we were renting from told us the house is built to go through a hurricane. There's actually a safe room built. And so we retreated to what we thought was the safe room. We found out after the fact that we wrote it out in the wrong closet. But my wife and I, the 3 kids, and our 2 dogs all piled into a walk-in closet and basically just prayed for the next few hours.
At some point about, say, probably 10:30, 11 o'clock, I walked up to the front part of the building and pulled my phone out and shot some video out the front conference room windows of the wind and the rain coming in almost diagonally straight across. And I remember thinking, I have never seen anything like this.
We had nurses and stuff we were in the emergency room. They was holding the doors. The wind was just getting worse and worse and worse. When it kind of settled down a little bit where we thought the eye was above us, we all got alerted that there was a RV that got flipped over with subjects inside. We ran out there, and sure enough, the RV was on its side, and we was trying to break the windows to get in it. We got in it, and I remember the gentleman was cut up pretty bad, and we got him out and got him inside the hospital. And then it picked up worse. It was worse the second go around than it was the first go around. It was extremely bad.
We had mattresses set up in different places in the studio, which we ended up using to stop the water from coming in the front door.
We are so used to hearing cries for help and sending help, hearing cries for help and giving instructions until help gets there, reassuring people that help is coming. And so it was a complete 180 in our job to say, help's not coming. You're gonna have to save yourself out of this situation.
I need you to get to the safest. It's my bedroom, okay. And it's the only part of my house that is not exposed right now. The whole tree demolished everything else.
Okay, listen, I need you all to get in that room and stay in that room. The eye of the hurricane is about to come over us. Do not get out of your home, okay? During the eye of the hurricane, you stay in that room until somebody comes to you, okay?
And then all of a sudden there was this huge crack, and within 2 feet of where my husband was standing, a huge limb just came right through the roof like that. If he had been a couple steps further, it would have got him.
Again, if you've just joined us here on mypanhandle.com or you're watching the streaming live on Facebook, we certainly appreciate you watching all over the world. We've got to thank you for tuning in. Here, you have to watch this. Hey, Ross, take it for a second, would you?
Yeah. We're approaching the eye wall making landfall here, and this is definitely gripping, and it's gripping so that we are hearing the building shaking.
We had good friends who stayed at Callaway Point. At least we thought they did. And we also had good friends in Mexico Beach who did stay. And at that point, I was like, they're right in the middle of the worst of this. So it was personal for me. But meanwhile, you got to keep going. You got to keep talking about what's coming in.
Oh boy, stuff's coming off top of our building because we are right next door to First Baptist and across from the United Way. Oh, hang on for the ride,
It's not
folks.
surprising.
Oh my.
Hey folks. Hey folks.
We were on generator and all of a sudden things started to flicker, and I thought, okay, there's something wrong here.
It's like this everywhere.
And I venture to say, when this is over, this is going to look like so many other hurricanes. Everything is going to be blown away in many parts of our hometown.
Yep. You know, we said this last night.
Yep.
The coastline's going to change.
Sure
History-making storm.
No doubt about it. Just lost power. You can hear us, but you can't see us, maybe. Our lights are out in the studio. If you can still hear us, this is what we're sitting in darkness at the moment. Emergency lights are on. We do have a generator, but I guess that's been struggling this afternoon too with the high winds.
I went back to go sit with Katie, and I'm sitting there next to her, and she's knocked out. I'm sitting there, I'm watching my iPad, and I'm watching 13 go off the air. And you think the worst.
I'm going to ask people to pray for us. I pray for everybody in Bay County and who's going through this. I'm scared. We're safe, but I'm scared. And a lot of folks are texting, so we're okay, but the prayers are needed. And you know, we're worried about the young ones. Again, we have a lot of young reporters here. It's their first job, their first hurricane. My goodness, what a way to start your career, huh? But they were flawless. They were scared to death, and you never know it. They worked so hard.
I'm not the only dispatcher, you know, married to a first responder. And a lot of our dispatchers, their husbands and wives were still at home too, you know. And so it's really hard not knowing what was going on.
It was petrifying at moments. You know, your natural desire is you just want to talk to those people you love. Our communication was just spotty enough. I would get a random text message that basically said, "I'm so sorry," I had no context of what they were saying.
It looked like somebody was outside our window with a fire hose, that just the force of the water going by, and then afterwards, just the debris, the pieces of leaves that were wedged in between bricks and between our window casings. It's like, oh my gosh.
We could look out an exterior window and see the roof being lifted off. So basically, the pressure drop was basically trying to tear the building apart, and it was pulling all the air out of the building. And I just remember, you know, the chilling effect of that, and realizing what must be going on outside to cause that.
We walked outside and started walking around the hospital a little bit, just to, you know, try to find out what had gone on, if we can get out and everything. And it was, we didn't think we was going to even get out of the parking lot of the hospital. It was extremely bad. There was debris, power poles, everything, just scattered everywhere.
The helplessness of being cut off from all of my folks and not knowing if they were safe, not knowing where critical incidents were occurring throughout the county was just such a helpless feeling.
Then we went outside and we walked up to the top of the parking garage next to the church here, next to the station, and looked around, and nobody could speak. You're just looking around going, where's our town at? It's gone. The trees were gone. The leaves, there were no leaves anywhere. If the trees were standing, they were all bent over from north aiming directly south, because that's the wind the whole time was coming that direction. And you just looked around going, this is, the town's gone. Buildings were crumbled. You could see the brick building across the street was completely crumbled. The AT&T building, the brick was ripped off one side of the building completely, just ripped, like peeled back.
The more we moved towards the east side, the worse it got. I remember seeing the train flipped over on 231 and thinking, how is that physically possible?
And then we walked up a little bit back over toward like the cove, and then we walked past the Family Dollar and came back. And it was just shock and awe.
And I really felt like I needed to try to get up to the EOC to see if we had communications up there, because what we were at the sheriff's office, we were working off our mobile radios, and the EOC is where we have communications, where 911 is, where communications is.
You're getting these phone calls of destruction from all around your house, from your husband's work, from your wife's work, you know it's being destroyed and you can't speak to them. And even if, when we still had phones, it's not like we could stop and be like, hold on, let me call my family and make sure they're okay.
You're not there, so you don't know what to expect. And then I'm flipping through, and I mean, it's just one of those moments where you don't know how bad it is. And then the next thing you do, because Katie's out, she doesn't know what's going on, and so you start picking up your phone, start calling people. Nobody's answering the phones. So again, it makes you think the worst again.
It was terrible to not know if my son and my daughter-in-law and my grandchildren were okay. It was a nightmare, and I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
As a new sheriff, I had 2 years in the job at that point. I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders, the weight of the county on my shoulders. When I looked over and saw Neubauer Realty that's there at the corner of 77 and Mosley, and it was just completely destroyed. And then got to 77 and looked north and south on 77 and could just see the destruction. Again, the winds were still probably 60 miles an hour at that point. I just had to stop and gather myself and thoughts, and it was a moment I'll never forget.
It was like living a horrible movie, just a catastrophic movie, and it was just so real. And I can remember I got to a point on Highway 77, I had to park my vehicle and walk about a mile through neighborhoods and just trying to find our house. Everything was so different. Trees were down, roads were blocked, power lines down, homes damaged, some destroyed, and finally made it to our house, and thankfully it was still standing, but we had quite a bit of damage. But the family was okay, and that was the main thing there. I got this picture that a nurse took of us probably 5-10 minutes after we walked out of the hospital, and we were all together, and we was walking down the road, and just, I've never seen guys that had that look. We was trying to figure out what was going on, or what we can do to try to help, and at the same time worried about our own selves and our families, and it was terrible.
Made it up to the EOC. They were just starting to emerge.
I remember standing at the front door of the EOC and Sheriff Ford walking up. The look on his face, knew it was bad. I apologize. I knew it was bad. The place that I call home was just gone.
He and I both have come up through this emergency services and response stuff in Florida. I'd been through a lot of storms, and both realizing, kind of communicating without words what we would be facing.
I expected to be a lot more emotional seeing the church on the ground, seeing the building itself demolished, but amazingly enough, seeing it, about the only thing in my head was, as far as we know, our people are okay. It's just time to get to work about the things that matter, and that was the people.
Over the North Bay Bridge, and there into Lynn Haven, and seeing a Coast Guard helicopter hovering, and I could tell that they had their winch line deployed, and I knew they were on the ground.
I remember my dog. My wife had the dog, and my dog was the first thing that ran up to me. And then I seen my wife, and she ran up to me, and of course we hugged, and she wanted me to make sure that I knew she was okay, and the boys were okay. That she'd be okay for me to get back to work, because I was to the point that I didn't know if I wanted to go back.
And I feel, still feel issues with those losses, but also an incredible sense of pride for our community. and how we responded.
I don't think anybody believed that this could have happened. I remember people really wondering, what do I do now? What's next?
It was amazing. You get out there and a lot of these people lost everything, but still at the same time they were helping us help others. I'll never forget that. It was amazing.
I know we received a lot of calls that people were going to neighbors' houses, people were helping neighbors, people were just being good people, helping each other.
The community that came together, the moments, the minutes, the hours, the weeks, the day, the months that followed, gave you hope.
I think one of the things with a storm like this is it puts priorities in focus. What matters, what doesn't, when can you live with, what can you live without.
I saw more people doing positive things and being positive in a very dark time.
You know, you see the best in people, and unfortunately you also see the worst. But I think we saw a lot more good than we saw bad. And I think the community will be better over the long term because of that.
Your faith in your family, and then your extended family, your friends. Those are the people that help you, you help them. Because we were all struggling with the same things together at the same time, I think there was a greater sense of empathy and patience with each other.
It was a real eye-opener. My why of why I've done this my whole life keeps evolving, and Hurricane Michael is that storm that changed my why.
I've laughingly told people from now on, if anything gets 2 or higher, that we'll be visiting our neighbors to the north, and I don't mean Alabama. I mean, we'll be in Canada.
I was definitely a weather nerd and definitely a weather junkie, but after that I became, a professional meteorologist because I understood what it took after that. So that was kind of the defining moment for me.
If another one comes, I'll be right here. I'll be right here. That's what I do, what I love to do.
The men and women of the Sheriff's Office and our other law enforcement agencies and at the jail, the amazing things they did, the sacrifices that they made, both personally, to do amazing things for this community on that day.
If you had a need and someone saw that need, they would help you out. And you were likewise. You saw somebody needed something. You had it, here.
I think the bonds that have been built amongst our neighbors are just unbreakable.
The proceeding was presented commercial-free thanks to the sponsorship of Peden Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electrical.